A shocking and tragic event occurred on March 27, 1977 that forever changed the world of aviation. It began when a terrorist group detonated a bomb inside a florist's shop at Gran Canaria Airport in the Canary Islands. The explosion caused injuries to 8 individuals and also led to the closure of the airport for incoming flights, while authorities secured the terminal. Little did anyone know that this would set off a chain of events that would ultimately lead to the deadliest aviation disaster in history, claiming the lives of 583 people. The circumstances surrounding this catastrophe are marked by astonishing coincidences. Could the series of events that ultimately led to the tragedy have been prevented? Even after 40 years, the answers to these questions remain uncertain, keeping our attention firmly fixed on that fateful day in Tenerife. In this video, we will explore the sequence of incidents that occurred and discuss what could have been done differently to prevent such a tragic fate. The 27th of March 1977 began as a normal day. 2 flights prepared for their journey to the Canary Islands. Pan Am Flight 1736, carrying 380 passengers including retired couples, departed from JFK Airport. An hour later, KLM Flight 4805, with 235 passengers on board, including Captain Jacob Louise Veldhuizen van Santin, readied for departure from Amsterdam. Both flights were destined for Gran Canaria Airport in Las Palmas. At the time, this was the largest airport in the Canary Islands, and for tourists arriving from abroad, it was the main port of entry. But, as it turned out, that also made it a target for those who were not satisfied with the way the islands were run. In the early afternoon of the same day, a group known as the Movement for Independence and Self-Determination of the Canaries Archipelago detonated an improvised bomb inside a florist's shop within the terminal at Gran Canaria Airport, causing injuries to 8 individuals. A phone call warning of a second bomb prompted airport authorities to shut down the airport and initiate the evacuation of the terminal. With the airport shut down, all airplanes headed to Gran Canaria were diverted somewhere else. At the time, the island of Tenerife was served only by a small single-runway airport called Los Rodeos. The airport was not unaccustomed to international traffic, but it usually served smaller jets operating for private, low-cost and holiday-focused airlines from Europe. With the situation, this became the new destination for all flights that were headed to Gran Canaria before. Planes started to arrive at Los Rodeos in a never-ending stream. KLM Flight 4805 was among the first to land, touching down at 1:38 p.m. Shortly after, more planes quickly piled up behind it, including Pan Am Flight 1736, which arrived at 2:15 p.m. Los Rodeos was by far an inadequate airport for these planes, but it was the only option at the time. At 2:30, after Pan Am 747 arrived at Los Rodeos, bomb squads cleared Gran Canaria Airport for any additional bombs, leading to its reopening. The Pan Am crew, eager to leave, requested permission to start their engines and taxi to the runway for takeoff. However, the KLM 747 blocked their way to the runway, leaving them with no option but to wait for the Dutch plane to take off first. KLM Captain Jacob van Santin made a calculated decision to add extra fuel to reduce overall time on duty, although it further delayed their departure from Tenerife. By 4:51 p.m., with the weather deteriorating at Los Rodeos, KLM Flight 4805 finished refueling and requested clearance to start its engines. Pan Am Flight 1736 followed suit 20 seconds later. Both planes were instructed to take off from runway 30, requiring a complex taxi procedure due to the low visibility and many parked planes. The controller, struggling to handle the large 747s, eventually cleared KLM to back taxi up the runway and make a 180-degree turn at the far end. 4 minutes later, he allowed Pan Am to follow KLM and exit at the third available taxiway. Amidst the blowing fog, all parties lost sight of one another as the two 747s crawled along the runway. With no ground radar, the controller relied on pilot reports to track their locations, but it was challenging for the pilots to figure out where they were going. The controller's thick Spanish accent added to the confusion for the Pan Am crew. They spent 2 minutes deciphering whether he said first or third regarding the taxiway. Confusing exchanges followed, and Pan Am finally asked for confirmation about the third intersection. The controller affirmed, and the Pan Am crew struggled to locate it as they spotted the second exit through the dense fog. Simultaneously, Captain Van Santen pushed the throttles to take off power and announced, "We're going." Taken by surprise, First Captain Muirs hastily finished his transmission. "Right turn out 040 until intercepting the 325. We are now at takeoff." The controller appeared uncertain as to whether Muirs said "at takeoff" or "taking off," and responded with "okay," followed by a momentary pause, trying to figure out the best course of action. After 2 seconds, the controller instructed the KLM flight to stand by for takeoff and stated he would call them later. At that exact moment, First Officer Bragg on the Pan Am, believing that the pause indicated the end of the transmission, keyed his mic and said, "And we're still taxiing down the runway, the Clipper 1736. A dreadful coincidence occurred when simultaneous transmissions on the same frequency caused interference in the KLM cockpit, resulting in a loud squeal that partially drowned out the communication. The KLM pilots only heard the controller's "okay," which they mistakenly took as confirmation of clearance. As a result, the controller's instruction to wait for takeoff clearance and the Pan Am first officer's position report went unnoticed by the KLM crew. Unaware of the danger ahead, KLM Flight 4805 accelerated down the runway towards the fog-covered area. At that moment, KLM Captain Victor Grubbs spotted the landing lights of the KLM 747 hurtling out of the fog. "There he is! Look at him!" he shouted. "He's headed this way!" Grubbs swung the tiller hard to the left and accelerated the engines to max power, attempting to force the plane onto the grass. On the KLM, the Pan Am 747 also appeared suddenly through the fog, its white bulk looming dead ahead. "Oh shoot!" Captain Van Santen exclaimed, pulling the control column back as far as it would go in a desperate attempt to lift off. The tail slammed into the runway in a shower of sparks as the fully laden 747, its engines straining, fought heroically to become airborne. At the last moment, the wheels left the runway and the plane lurched into the air, but it was too late. Flying in a nose-high position, with its tail about 2 meters off the ground, KLM Flight 4805 slammed broadside into Pan Am Flight 1736 at a speed of 260 kilometers per hour. KLM's engine sliced off Pan Am's fully occupied upper deck and hurled it down the runway, instantly killing everyone inside. In the main cabin, the roof opened up to reveal a sky of blazing orange. The collision itself only lasted a split second. Then, KLM Flight 4805 was in the air, but falling, crippled beyond hope of recovery, back to the runway. 150 meters on, it crashed to the ground and broke into 3 pieces. The full load of fuel ignited, and the wreckage slid down the runway for another 300 meters, consumed in flames. Of the 248 people on board KLM Flight 4805, none survived. Investigators would later conclude that the impact itself was not especially violent, but that the fire consumed the plane so quickly that hardly anyone even managed to leave their seat, let alone open an exit door. On Pan Am Flight 1736, where fire was also the primary killer, the loss of life was even heavier. Initially, 327 of the 396 on board were said to have died, but this soon grew to 335, as several badly burned victims succumbed to their injuries. In the end, only 61 survived, including all Pan Am pilots. The scale of the disaster required thorough research. A commission of 70 investigators from Spain, the United States, and the Netherlands, including KLM and Pan Am representatives, was gathered. After reviewing the recordings, the Commission set up 3 key questions to determine the reasons for the disaster. First, why did Captain Van Santen begin to take off without the control tower's clearance? Second, why did the control tower ask Captain Grubbs to exit via the 3rd terminal instead of the more suitable 4th terminal? And why did Grubbs fail to comply with these instructions? Thirdly, why did the KLM's crew neglect the message from Pan Am indicating that the runway was still occupied? However, in truth, the KLM captain was only one of several factors that contributed to the Tenerife airport disaster, but he was definitely not solely to blame for the tragedy. The disaster was caused by a chain of absurdly long events, some which were even beyond control. Factors like fog, the small gap between planes, and simultaneous radio broadcasts played their role, showing how complex systems can be vulnerable, leading to unintended consequences. 4 systematic problems also contributed to the disaster. Criminalization of procedural violations stressed the KLM crew, leading to suboptimal decisions. Cockpit hierarchies were one-sided, with junior crew members hesitant to assert themselves. Imprecise terminology and language barriers led to misunderstandings between aircrews and controllers, and the lack of infrastructure at Los Rodeos Airport, such as ground cover, sufficient controllers, and taxiway markings, also contributed significantly to the disaster. Several things were put in place in the aviation world to avoid the recurrence of such a tragedy. This included strengthened regulations for radio communications and English language, requirements for readback of instructions, and improved crew training and management. Changes were also made to Tenerife airports, including the installation of ground radar and the opening of a 2nd airport. The Tenerife airport disaster rocked the world, affecting thousands of people. Whole families were lost, friends torn apart, and peaceful lives transformed in a matter of moments. Perhaps such a tragedy is one of the best examples of the butterfly effect. So many minute things occurred, and if a single one of them had been removed from the equation, the disaster might not have happened at all. Now, if you thought this story was intriguing, don't hesitate to watch another one.